Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to the beginning of the final day of AMA Junior Camp 2021. I'm the Education Specialist at the AMA, Kyle Thede, and here once again to help me out is the Education Director at AMA, Kyle Jarris.
Hey, Kyle, it's good to see you once again, and what an exciting day ahead. You know, we've got some great projects, and I'm kind of excited to finally use this hot glue gun that came in the flight pack.
Oh yeah, we've got lots of cool things in the flight pack that maybe you've been wondering about this week. How are we going to use that? What is that for? And your questions are about to be answered. This is the last major project that we're going to be working on this week. But stick around to the end of this video because there's even more coming that we've been kind of hinting at throughout the week. But I'm really excited about this project. This is probably the most unusual project, really. But it's a lot of fun. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it as much as we are.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, teaching that kind of ground effect idea around it, this is going to be a good one. Now, if you didn't get a flight pack, you can still do this at home. Kyle will walk you through some of the different materials that you will need. And if you want to build your own versions of this, even if you've got a flight pack, feel free to do so. This is a great project. And even if you did get a flight pack, you probably have enough stuff to make another one, with the exception of the base. You'll have to find some foam core for that.
All right, so we will go ahead and get started. We've been learning a lot this week about a lot of scientific ideas, like we've talked about air pressure, we've talked about Bernoulli, we've talked about Isaac Newton, we've talked about gravity and lift and all kinds of things that you really can't see, right? We've talked about things that you can measure and you can observe and you can make a lot of rules about, but you can't really see them and you can't really, it's hard, you can't touch lift. You can't really see the Bernoulli principle in effect. But these things are all really valuable things to know about because we can use them to make our world a better place and engineer solutions for things that maybe we need solutions for. So that's what this vehicle is that we are going to be making a model of today. This is a hovercraft. And a hovercraft does something very special that a lot of other vehicles cannot do because it doesn't really fly, but it also doesn't fully touch the ground. And when the wheels of a land vehicle touch the ground or when the hull of a boat touches the water, it creates what's called friction. Those two things are rubbing against each other. The surface of the vehicle and the surface that it's traveling over, those things rub against each other and it creates a force called friction that slows the vehicle down. Hovercrafts don't have to deal with that problem. And when we build this thing, you're going to see why. So before we get started, we're going to get the materials out of our toolkit for those of you who have flight packs. The things that you're going to need specifically we have some straws here, and we sent along probably a few different colors for you to choose from. You're only going to need one of them, so pick your favorite color. We are also going to need our balloons, and we sent a few different colors of those as well. So make sure you pick out your favorite color. I'm going to go with blue and purple. I like those colors for mine. And you're also going to need, you can have your tape on hand. This might come in handy. You're definitely going to need your scissors, and you're also going to need this sharp, nice pencil that you have in your kit. So, and if you don't have a flight pack, make sure you gather up those materials as well. Hopefully those are easy for you to find and gather together.
Yeah, certainly. And if you've got a hot glue gun at home, or if once again you've got a flight pack,
yes,
those will come with that hot glue gun. Feel free to go ahead and get it out now. Now, if you've got one that came in a clamshell, be very careful about opening that. This is that one area that you can really injure yourself on accident because clamshells are very difficult to open. So have a parent or an adult help out with opening those up. My recommendation is just to cut it out all along that clamshell, and then it'll open up really easily for you. But the edges will be sharp, so be careful. That's a great place for a parent to help out. And also, even in using that glue gun, we got low temperature glue guns for these flight packs, but it's still hot glue. So be very careful. Don't put your hands anywhere near that hot glue where that's coming out. Just be very cautious, especially for the younger kids and even the adults that are using this. Just be very careful.
All right. I can't believe I almost forgot about the hot glue gun. That might be one of the most important parts. That is also going to be in your toolkit for those of you with flight packs. And it's probably a good idea to go ahead and plug that in right here at the beginning because it takes hot glue guns a few minutes to warm up and be ready to use. So I've got mine plugged in. I've inserted a glue stick into it. It should be warming up nicely here, and it should be ready for us to use when we get to that step. All right, so now we are going to need to get out our materials from project number 5 envelope. So there are going to be a few things in here, or a couple things. There are the instructions, as always. And of course, for this live stream, Kyle and I are your instructions. But for those of you who need to reference things a little bit later on, or if you want to see it in writing, it is right here. And also on the back, there is a template for the Hovercraft. And this is available to download in a link in the video description. So for those of you without flight packs, you can still use this template to make your design as well. But for those of you with flight packs, we have also included a pre-made Hovercraft hull right here that matches the template exactly. It already has the hole cut out right here in the middle, as you can see, and it's made out of a I believe it's a polystyrene material. Is that right, Kyle?
Correct.
All right,
Polystyrene. So this is used in a lot of different signage materials, like sandwich board signs at gas stations and things like that. But we got a thinner version because it works better.
It's very lightweight, it's flexible, but it's also strong. So this is what we're going to use to make our Hovercraft hull. All right. So once you've got all of your things together, we are going to go ahead and get started. So the very first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to take your straw, whichever color you chose. You can see that these are flexible straws. They've got the little bendable accordion shape right here. So go ahead and bend it right where that is. And then what you want to do is take your scissors, and we are going to cut the straw so that it is an equal length on both sides of the flexible part, right? We don't want this end to be so much longer than the other. Doesn't need to be exact, but they need to be pretty close to the same length.
And remember too, as you're watching this, if you fall behind a little bit, if you're still gathering stuff up, that's fine. Just hit pause, and catch back up on your schedule. Don't rush through it. Take your time, have fun. Some of this one in particular has a lot of steps that might be a bit more involved than some of the other ones. So it's okay to hit pause. That's not a failure point. Take as much time as you need.
Yeah, there are a couple steps here where I'm already concerned that I might need to try them a couple different times, but
now,
we'll
I don't
see.
know if you can hit pause, Kyle. I don't think that works.
Well. But so I've got my my straw here cut down to equal lengths on either side of the flexible part. Save the other part, the part that you cut off. Save this straight part here. We're going to be using that for something a little bit later. But the next thing you want to do with this equal length straw is you're going to take your scissors again, and you're going to make one end of the straw. You're going to cut it down to a sharp angle. All right. And what we want to do, one thing that would make sure that it is exactly the angle you want, is you can insert the straw through the oval hole of your hull if you have the hull already, or if you have used the template to cut it out. And by the way, for those of you who are using the template, if you are printing it out, or if you would rather use that than the hull that we provided for you, you can use this template to cut this hull out of any lightweight, strong material that you want. You can use foam board, you can use cardstock, you can use any kind of material that is, like I said, lightweight and strong. And you can try making a few different Hovercraft and see which material you have the best luck with. But for those of you who are using the hull that we provided, you can insert the straw through that kind of oval-shaped hole there in the middle and kind of wobble it back and forth until it is firmly in place, that it seals up the full shape of that oval. And then you'll just flip it over, and we will cut off the straw that's sticking through. And that way you know that it is exactly the angle that you need it to be for our purposes. All right, that cut ended up being just a little bit ragged, so I'm going to smooth it out here. But that's what we want. We want to have our flexible straw that is equal lengths on either side of the flexible part. One end has a sharp angle cut into it. The other end, we're going to leave it flat. All right. So that is the last little bit of fun we're going to have with the straw for right now, but there'll be more later on. All right. Now, another thing that we asked you to save from earlier on this week, we asked you to save your bits of foam from when we cut out the catapult glider. We used some of it yesterday to make our rotorcraft stabilizer. And if you still have some of those scraps laying around, go ahead and get them back out, because we're going to use them for part of our Hovercraft as well. I've got some of mine right here. And also what you're going to need to get out, one thing that might help you get it out is if you have a quarter laying around, good old 25-cent coin right there. And what you want to do with this quarter, or if you have a washer or some other small round object that's around the same size, you want to use that quarter and you can trace around it with your pencil or your pen. I've tried using a pen on this before and the ink just smeared all over the foam, so that maybe wasn't such a great idea. I'm going to use a pencil instead this time.
It happens.
And so trace that quarter out, and then you're just going to cut that circle out so we have a little disc. And Kyle, I think you mentioned that you had done this with some of the cardboard from the box. Is that right?
Yeah. So on the flight packs that came out, I cut out a little square piece of cardboard, and it's about 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches, nothing huge. And you know what? I don't have a quarter with me, so we're going to wing it. I'm going to just cut off each corner as it goes through and make that a rounded disc about the size of a quarter.
There you go. There you go. The material here is not super important. If you threw away all your foam plates, that's fine. They were scraps. It's completely fine. But if you have cardboard or you have some other just lightweight, strong material that you can use to cut, whatever you use to make your hovercraft hull out of, maybe you can cut out just a small disc around the size of a quarter or a washer, or about, like Kyle said, about 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches. All right, so I've got my disc right here. And now I'm going to take my pencil, and this is something that you want to be very careful with. You guys have been handling scissors all week, so I trust you to use things that are sharp, and you even handled skewers earlier this week. But be very careful, obviously, when things are sharp. And what you want to do is take the pointy end of your pencil and just poke a hole right through the center of the disc. Now, this is one of those steps that I said earlier I was worried about, because I've broken through some of these discs all the way without getting a hole. But just be very gentle and patient.
And to that end, you should have, if you got a flight pack, you should have an extra skewer in there. I know we sent at least 3 out in each of them, so you should have one more.
Hey, there's an idea.
If your pencil's too dull, that works really well to start pushing that through there too, and at least get it started, and then you can run the pencil through to make it a little larger.
All right. Well, I think I got it, actually. Got my hole punched right there through the disc. So this ring here is going to go on the straw. And this is what you saw earlier on the example hovercraft, that the balloon is attached to the straw. This is what the balloon is going to be stretched over. So I'm going to take the straw that I cut at the beginning there, and I'm going to take the flat end of it, not the angled sharp end. I'm going to take the flat end. I'm going to slip that through the hole of the disc that I just made. And now it's time for the fun part. We are going to use our hot glue gun. I believe mine has been warming up here for a few minutes, so it should be ready for us to use it. But you want to glue this ring right here onto the end of the straw. So you don't want to clog up the straw. You don't want to put glue inside the straw. There still needs to be air flowing through this. But you do want to have that ring glued nice and secure on the end of the straw. So I'm going to use my glue gun, and again, be very careful with this, because this is a lower temperature glue gun, but it is still hot glue. It is still melted, and I can smell it here that it is definitely warming up.
And it'll take a little bit of time for that to dry. That's okay. Just kind of, you can blow on it or wave it in front of a fan or anything like that and help it cool down.
Exactly. Now, for those of you who did not purchase a flight pack, or if even those of you who did, if you would rather use standard white glue for this step, that is something you can use. White glue takes a lot longer to dry than hot glue does, but it does form a stronger bond, I think. So if you're willing to be patient, if you're willing to hold it in place and wait for it to dry very patiently, you're welcome to do that. Give it a try and see if maybe you get a stronger bond. But for what we're doing here, the hot glue should work just fine. But like Kyle said, it still will take a few minutes to dry. It's not instant. So make sure that you don't go waving it around and let the ring fall off or anything. Once you have the glue all the way around and it's formed that seal, make sure that you leave it alone. Make sure you leave it, you don't wobble it around and let that seal get broken.
Mine's starting to get pretty solid. I put a little bead of glue around both the top and the bottom.
Oh, there you go.
Secure it a little bit.
It's a good idea.
And you can see my circle is not perfect. I didn't use anything that would be a template like a coin, but I think it's going to work. So we'll see.
Yeah, balloons can stretch. So
yeah,
like I said before, the balloon is going to be stretched over that ring that we just made. So if you find out that maybe the circle or the square that you cut out is too big and the balloon doesn't stretch quite enough, you can always just go and trim it around and make it the right size. So better to have one that's too big than too small, because you can always cut it down to be smaller. So now back to using our hull. Well, not back to using our hull. I guess this is the first thing we're going to be doing with it. But ultimately, we are going to end up gluing the other end of the straw to this hole right here. We're going to create a seal there too. Now, one thing we found out when we were putting together our first hovercraft here, we found out that this material, this polystyrene material, as great as it is, it doesn't really want to hold on to the glue very strong. Like the glue doesn't really cling to this surface because it's just really so smooth.
It's really smooth, which works great for underneath because, we don't want that friction. But on top, when we're trying to get that glue to stick,
Yeah, exactly. Now we want a little bit of friction here. So what we are going to do, what we came up with that actually works pretty well. This is going to look kind of silly, but it works, I promise. We took our scissor blades. I'm going to open my scissors up like this, and I'm going to take just one of the blades of the scissors, and you're going to go down to where this oval hole is, and you're just going to scratch the material, just back and forth.
You're going to kind of cross hatch it. I don't know if you've had art classes where you're cross hatching with a pen, but now you're doing it with this scissor blade. And be careful because it is a blade. It's sharp. But by doing that, you're just giving little nooks and crannies for that glue to seep into and to hold on.
So we just want to scratch it up. And what Kyle J means by cross-hatching is you scratch them in one direction, left to right, and then you also scratch them up and down. So you kind of go back and forth, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board.
Yeah.
So that there's lots of scratches that are overlapping with each other and intersecting with each other. And like you said, you get all those nice little nooks and crannies that the glue can really grip onto.
And you'll make a little bit of a mess, but be sure to clean up afterwards.
There you go. Now this isn't the cleanest and fanciest step, but it works. Sometimes engineering is a little bit messy. That's okay.
Can I share one more tip real quick while you're doing that?
Absolutely.
So I've found so the next step is going to be, we're going to potentially start gluing things again where we just cross hatch, but we don't want that glue to end up on the bottom of our hovercraft board. We want this to remain very smooth. And that hot glue, if it gets under there and dries, it's an area that causes a lot of friction because that hot glue is almost like a rubbery surface, and we don't want that on the bottom. So what I've found to be fairly effective is I'll take a piece of tape and I'll just cover that hole over right there on the bottom. Now I'll take this tape off when we're all done, but that keeps that hot glue from seeping underneath and causing an issue. It also gives you a good place to rest. Well, I won't get too far into it. It'll work out better, I think. So you might want to consider trying that.
That's a good idea. Go ahead and put that tape right there. And we'll flip it back over. All right. And I always had better luck with putting the balloon on before gluing the straw. You could probably do it in either order. I know it's written one way in the instructions, so if you're following along with the written instructions, but I'm going to go ahead and put the balloon on first. I'm going to go ahead and get this stretched over the ring, and I think that's just about the right size. So those of you who use the quarter, that works out pretty well.
Yeah, and like you mentioned too, the whole reason we're trying to create that cross hatching on the base there is to make it stronger, because it wasn't the strongest connection point. And us putting these on, it's not exactly a gentle process to slide that balloon over top of there. So if we were trying to do that while it was on and attached with the hot glue to the base, it might come off. So this is definitely the way to go. Good call.
All right. So now what we're going to do is, you remember we cut that little angle into the end of our straw here, and we're just going to slide that angle right back into the oval where it fits, hopefully perfectly, which is what we were trying to do when we cut that angle. And we're going to use our hot glue gun, again, very carefully, making sure you don't burn your fingers or burn anything else. And just going to create a nice tight seal around the straw and that polystyrene board. Now, this is the step that is going to take a little bit of patience, because you can't just squirt the glue on and then, take your hands off of it and leave it be. Like, you can't set this one aside and let it dry. You've kind of got to hold it in place and wait for the glue to dry, and you got to be patient. So we are I'm gonna very carefully turn it around here. Now, if you absolutely need to set it aside, if you absolutely have something else that you need to do while you're waiting for the glue to dry, you can possibly use a piece of the masking tape that we provided to hold it in place. Just put the masking tape over the wet glue as it's drying. Be very careful when you do that. But it is probably best practice to hold the straw in place until the glue fully dries. So if that's not something that you have the time for right now, as Kyle J said, you always can pause this video and come back to it when you do have time. Those of you who are on spring break, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, the nice thing is right now, like the balloon is acting as kind of a support for me. So I've got it sitting here. I'm trying not to breathe on it too heavily and knock it over. But it seems like that both that tape underneath and the hot glue that's pooled around it and the balloon is forming kind of a lattice where it's holding it in place for me. So, but if you've got steady hands, feel free to use those to hold it too, just like Kyle's doing.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little bit firmer here, but still a little wobbly, still a ways to go.
And I will share too, like hot glue, my temptation with hot glue is always to think, well, more must be better. But remember, hot glue is also kind of heavy. So like most aircraft or things that fly or hover, we want to be sure that we try to eliminate weight where we can. So don't use too much hot glue, but use enough.
That is a good point. So I don't think we really mentioned at the beginning how it is that hovercraft work in the first place. How is this supposed to fight against friction? What is it going to do? So what hovercraft do is that they produce a cushion of air underneath their hulls that is a very, very thin layer between the surface of the vehicle and the surface of the whatever it is they're traveling over. There's a small cushion of air. If anyone has ever played air hockey, that's what's happening, right? There's a small cushion of air that's being formed right above the surface of the table, and it allows the puck to kind of glide around. And that's what we're doing with our hovercraft here. So when we inflate this balloon, and then let it go, the air is going to flow out of that straw. It's going to go out through this little oval hole in the center of the hull, and it's going to create a small cushion of air, a very thin cushion of air underneath this hull that allows it to glide over any surface you want. So hovercraft in real life can be used to travel over water, over land, over sand, over ice, over any surface imaginable. They're like the hovercraft, not the hovercraft. They're like the helicopters of land. Like helicopters can fly and land anywhere that a lot of other aircraft can't. Hovercraft can travel over all kinds of terrain that land vehicles can't. So they are very useful. All right, I think mine is pretty dry here. That's
mine's looking
that's
pretty
just
good
about
too.
right. All right, so you don't have to wait too long. Just a couple minutes here. All right, so I did mention at the beginning, you got to save that other length of straw that we cut off. So we are going to use it now, or at least I'll demonstrate here how to use it, and then you can see we have another bit of video footage showing you how this works. But what you need to do is you need to take your scissors, and you're just going to cut a small slit into one end of the straw. Doesn't matter which end. All right. You can cut 2 slits if you want. I think in the other video that we have of this, I cut 2 slits into it. 1 or 2 doesn't really matter, because what you're really trying to do is you're going to take that end of the straw with the slit in it, and you're going to roll it so that that end of the straw is narrower than the other end, because this is what we are going to use to inflate the balloon on the hovercraft. We can take this tape off now that we've succeeded in keeping the glue from seeping through. And you're going to take that slightly narrower end of your straw. You're going to slide it into the oval opening from the other end. And that means that we can inflate our balloon. Oh, you made a yellow one.
Yeah, I went with yellow this time.
Good call. Now, I will say that the carpet here on my table that I'm working with is probably giving me a little bit too much friction, even with that cushion of air. There's still probably a little bit too much friction here for the hovercraft to actually work. But we do have some footage of it working on a smoother surface. You can see there, inflating it exactly the same way with using my slightly narrowed straw. You can inflate the balloon and let it go.
Wow, it works so well. You can totally tell that, you know, there's not a lot of friction there. It's moving right along on that cushion of air.
And yeah, I was right. The carpet here doesn't work quite as well. I don't know if you could all hear that hissing sound. But yeah, and also the angle of that the straw is attached to that oval hole kind of gives it not only that cushion of air underneath, forcing it downward, but also it also is the airflow is being directed towards the back end of the hovercraft. And like we've mentioned a few times this week, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if that airflow is being directed down and to the back, that means the hovercraft is going to be rising up and moving forward.
It's really cool. And there's a lot of ways to eliminate friction in different materials. You know, there was a comment earlier that they said there's a special paint that they use on their sailboat at home that eliminates friction as it glides through the water. It's the same idea. The more you can eliminate that friction, the better off you're going to be in a lot of different applications.
Wow, I'd never heard of that special paint. You can see in the video of where I'm inflating or I'm rolling the straw there, you can see there's another hovercraft sitting right there on the table. That's one that I made out of just a foam board. I'm using very similar dimensions to what's included in the template. That was even, I think I even made that one before we made the template. But you can see that it had fins on it. And you can obviously modify these hovercraft however you want. Like if you've built one out of the hull that we provided, or if you built one out of some other materials, you can obviously modify them however you want, just like we've been able to modify all the other models that we've built this week. You can add fins, you can add other stabilizing surfaces onto it. See what you can make of it, and see what else you can get it to do besides just glide across the table.
Yeah, certainly. And definitely finding that smooth, flat surface is where these really excel. You know, unfortunately, you've got the carpet there. Mine worked a little bit on the tabletop here, but I'm not going to try and shift the camera around to show you. That B-roll was perfect. So they're a lot of fun. And feel free to share the photos of yours working. You know, we've been enjoying seeing on social media, with parents' permission, the different hashtag iFlyAMA of all the projects and people having fun. Saw another classroom that was launching some of the Project 2, our catapult launch gliders the other day. So that worked out really well. But we'd love to see these going as well.